There is a silent epidemic spreading across the modern world, one that goes unnoticed, undiagnosed, and untreated. It is not a disease of the body, but of the mind and soul. Weakness, misery, a quiet, creeping despair that eats away at people from the inside. You see it in the way they carry themselves, shoulders hunched under the weight of invisible burdens, eyes dulled by endless distractions, hearts filled with unspoken regrets. But why? Why do so many people remain trapped in lives of quiet suffering? Why do they crumble under the slightest pressure, unable to withstand the trials that life inevitably throws their way? Why do they resign themselves to fate, waiting for things to change, never realizing that they themselves must change? The ancient Stoics had an answer that has been buried under centuries of noise, comfort, and illusion. They understood that strength is not something you are born with. It is something you cultivate. Misery is not something that happens to you. It is something you allow. And the key to breaking free lies in a profound shift in perspective, one that most people never dare to make. In this video, we will explore why so many remain weak and miserable through the lens of Stoic philosophy. We will uncover the hidden traps that keep people chained to their suffering, the illusions that weaken their minds, and the timeless wisdom that can set them free. Along the way, we will reveal practical techniques that anyone, no matter their circumstances, can use to forge an unbreakable spirit. This is not a lesson for the faint-hearted. It is a message for those who are ready to wake up from the dream of weakness and reclaim their power. If you are prepared to challenge everything you have been told about suffering, discipline, and strength, then let us begin. To understand why most people stay weak and miserable, we must first look to the ancients, specifically the Stoics, a group of philosophers whose teachings have endured for over 2 millennia. The Stoics did not simply seek knowledge for knowledge's sake. They were warriors of the soul, practitioners of an art far more difficult and valuable than anything found in the material world, the art of living virtuously and with purpose. Stoicism began in Athens in the 3rd century BC, founded by Zeno of Citium, but it was refined by later thinkers such as Epictetus, Seneca, and the emperor Marcus Aurelius. These thinkers were not detached scholars lost in abstract ideas. No, they were men who lived through war, poverty, exile, and the disillusionment of power. They understood that life was full of suffering, and they sought to answer one question. Above all others, how can we, as human beings, live a good life amidst such hardship? The core of Stoic thought revolves around the belief that suffering is not inherently caused by external events, but by our responses to them. The ancient Stoics would say, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. This statement, from the writings of Epictetus, illuminates the essence of their philosophy. The Stoics understood that we have no control over the vast majority of things that happen to us: sickness, loss, failure, betrayal, or the whims of fate. What we do have control over, however, is our thoughts, our attitudes, and the actions we take in response to those events. Through the lens of Stoicism, weakness and misery arise from one simple yet profound cause: the failure to control one's mind. When people become slaves to their emotions, whether through anger, fear, envy, or desire, they are imprisoned by them, unable to make clear, virtuous decisions. They become like ships tossed about in a storm, carried by forces they cannot control. Rather than captains steering their own course, the great Stoic philosophers also introduced the idea of living according to nature. This does not mean living in a state of wildness or abandon, but aligning one's life with the deeper currents of the universe, understanding what is within our power to change and what is not, and cultivating wisdom to act in harmony with those forces. The Stoics taught that by practicing virtues like wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, we could master ourselves and align with a natural order, freeing us from the chains of suffering. But there is something else that Stoicism brings too. The table of teaching that cuts through the noise of modernity. While many today are busy chasing fleeting pleasures or avoiding discomfort at all costs, the Stoics saw discomfort as a teacher, not an enemy. They understood that it is only through hardship that we truly grow. As Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic thinkers, once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind. As labor does the body." In this historical context, we begin to see the roots of the problem that plagues so many today. Weakness arises when we avoid the very discomfort that can shape us into resilient, strong individuals. Miserable lives are often the result of trying to avoid suffering, rather than facing it head-on with courage and wisdom. As we look deeper into these teachings, we will begin to unravel the illusions that keep people weak, illusions that have persisted since the time of the Stoics, and which still trap people today. Now that we've traced the roots of Stoic philosophy, we must dive deeper into the cause of why most people remain weak and miserable. The answer lies in the nature of the mind itself and the choices it makes, whether consciously or unconsciously, every single day. The Stoics taught us that human beings are often ruled by forces within their own minds, forces that lead them to misery and helplessness. These forces are driven by three core weaknesses: attachment to externals, unchecked desires, and avoidance of discomfort. 1. Attachment to externals. First, and perhaps most insidious source of human weakness, lies in our attachment to external circumstances, things beyond our control. In our modern world, we are constantly told that our happiness depends on external factors: how much money we make, how others perceive us, what we own, and the comforts we accumulate. We are conditioned to believe that the good life is one of indulgence and pleasure. But the Stoics understood something different. External circumstances are fleeting and unpredictable. They are subject to change, often in ways we cannot foresee. To build your sense of self-worth upon them is like building a house on sand. Imagine a man who is deeply attached to his material wealth. He owns a mansion, drives a luxurious car, and is constantly praised by others for his success. But one day, through circumstances beyond his control, he loses everything. The mansion is taken from him, his wealth dissipates, and the praise fades into silence. What is left? Without his attachments, who is he? If his identity was tied to external success, he has nothing to stand on. The Stoic philosopher would tell him that he was a slave to fortune, never truly free. True strength comes not from possessing things, but from possessing oneself, understanding that our value is not defined by what we have, but by who we are. 2. Unchecked desire. The second source of weakness is unchecked desire. Desires are a natural part of being human, but when they are left uncontrolled, they become insatiable forces that dominate the mind. Desire for wealth, fame, pleasure, approval. These desires pull us away from our center and create a constant sense of lack. We find ourselves chasing after things that we believe will fulfill us, yet no matter how much we acquire, we are always left wanting more. The Stoics argued that this insatiable hunger for external validation and material satisfaction is the root of most suffering. They taught that desire is a powerful force, but one that must be mastered. Epictetus, the great Stoic teacher, said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." If you live in pursuit of desires that are beyond your power to control, you are forever at the mercy of your own cravings. You are a slave to your desires, constantly seeking more, but never finding lasting peace. To illustrate this, imagine a bird with its wings clipped. No matter how hard it tries, it can never fly. Similarly, a person whose desires are unchecked is grounded, unable to experience true freedom. The Stoics advocated for temperance and self-control, teaching that the true path to happiness lies not in indulging every whim, but in finding contentment within oneself, independent of external circumstances. 3. Avoidance of discomfort. Third cause of misery is a common and subtle one, the avoidance of discomfort. In modern society, we are taught to avoid pain at all costs. Comfort is elevated to the highest virtue, and suffering is seen as something to be feared and avoided. But the Stoics viewed discomfort differently. They understood that discomfort is not the enemy, but a teacher. Just as a blacksmith shapes metal through fire, so too is the soul shaped through hardship. Consider the analogy of a seed growing into a tree. In the early stages of growth, the seed is fragile, exposed to the harsh elements. Yet it is precisely this struggle, the pressure of the soil, the wind, the rain, that strengthens the seed and allows it to grow into a sturdy tree. Without these challenges, it would remain weak and stunted. Likewise, when we avoid discomfort and difficulty, we stunt our own growth. Life will inevitably bring hardship, and the Stoics understood that it is in our response to that hardship that our true strength is forged. Those who run from discomfort, whether in the form of difficult emotions, physical challenges, or even difficult conversations, remain weak. They fail to build the mental fortitude necessary to face life's inevitable challenges. It is only through embracing discomfort, rather than avoiding it, that we can build true strength and resilience. Now that we have identified the 3 primary causes of weakness: attachment to externals, unchecked desires, and avoidance of discomfort, it's time to delve deeper into the subtleties of how these forces intertwine and reinforce each other, creating a vicious cycle that traps people in misery. The Stoics offered practical wisdom, not only to understand these weaknesses, but also to break free from them, cultivating inner strength and resilience. To truly master ourselves, we must engage with these forces consciously and deliberately. 4. The illusion of control. A key principle in Stoic philosophy is the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. Most people trapped in weakness fail to make this distinction. They exert energy trying to control the uncontrollable, the thoughts and actions of others, the outcomes of their efforts, the forces of nature, or the whims of fate. The Stoics taught that this is one of the most destructive tendencies of the human mind, to believe that we can control everything around us. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, urges us to focus solely on what is within our power. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The majority of human suffering arises from the illusion of control. People waste precious energy chasing after things they cannot influence, and in doing so, they become helpless when things inevitably slip beyond their grasp. When a person is attached to a specific outcome, they become anxious, resentful, or angry when things do not go as planned. Yet, Stoicism teaches us that our peace of mind does not depend on outcomes, but on our responses to those outcomes. The secret, then, is to stop fighting the current of life and instead to swim with it, acknowledging that while we cannot control the external world, we have full dominion over how we respond to it. By releasing the illusion of control, we can free ourselves from the anxiety that binds us. The wise person knows that their only true responsibility is how they engage with the world, not the world itself. 5. The path of virtue. The Stoics understood that the key to overcoming weakness was to focus on cultivating virtue. Virtue, according to Stoic thought, is the highest good, and everything else, wealth, status, pleasure, is indifferent. This is the foundation of Stoic ethics. To live virtuously is to live in accordance with nature, to embrace wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. However, this path is not an easy one. Virtue requires rigorous self-discipline and the continual examination of one's actions and motivations. It requires confronting our own flaws with humility and a willingness to improve. The pursuit of virtue demands that we look inward, constantly assessing whether our desires, decisions, and actions are in alignment with our higher principles. A person who seeks virtue is not driven by the pursuit of external rewards, but by the desire to act with integrity, honor, and wisdom. This is a person who stands firm against the temptations of the world, not because they are immune to them, but because they have developed the strength to choose what is right, regardless of the consequences. 6. The practice of mindfulness and reflection. The Stoics placed great importance on mindfulness, or the practice of continuous self-reflection. This is not merely an intellectual exercise, but an active process of observing the mind's tendencies and correcting them when they veer off course. In fact, Marcus Aurelius spent his days reflecting on his thoughts and behaviors, constantly reminding himself of his duties and the Stoic virtues he sought to embody. One of the simplest yet most profound Stoic practices is the daily reflection on one's actions and thoughts. Each evening, the Stoic might ask themselves, did I act with wisdom today? Did I display courage in the face of adversity? Was I just in my dealings with others? Did I exercise temperance in my desires? This practice of self-examination prevents the mind from becoming complacent and allows the individual to course correct before bad habits take root. When we engage in this kind of reflection, we gain a deeper awareness of our internal state. And with that awareness comes the power to change. We begin to understand why we act as we do, what motivates us, and where we are still weak. The beauty of this practice is that it requires no external validation. It is a personal journey toward self-mastery. The Stoics believed that only through continuous, rigorous self-reflection could one achieve true strength and freedom. 7. The role of adversity in growth. Finally, we return to the Stoic idea that adversity is not something to be feared or avoided, but something to be embraced. The Stoics didn't seek out hardship for the sake of hardship, but they understood that adversity, whether emotional, physical, or mental, is an inevitable part of life. And rather than see it as an obstacle, they saw it as an opportunity for growth. Imagine a goldsmith who has a raw block of gold. To shape it into something beautiful, the goldsmith must apply intense heat and pressure. Similarly, we are shaped through the heat of life's challenges. If we avoid discomfort and challenges, we remain in our raw, unshaped state. But if we embrace them, we forge ourselves into something far stronger, far more refined. The Stoics saw every challenge as an opportunity to grow in virtue, to exercise wisdom, courage, and temperance in the face of adversity. Through this, they became stronger, more resilient, and more self-sufficient. Now that we have explored the philosophical roots of why most people remain weak and miserable, let's shift our focus to practical, actionable steps. It's one thing to understand the problem, but it's another to transform that understanding into meaningful change. Stoic philosophy doesn't just stay within the realm of theory. It's a guide for action, a call to live differently, to embody wisdom in every moment. So how can we, as modern individuals, apply these ancient teachings to our lives? 1. Embrace the dichotomy of control. The first step in breaking free from weakness is understanding the dichotomy of control. This is not a mere intellectual exercise. It's a shift in perspective, a reorientation of the mind. Start by identifying what is within your control and what is not. In any situation, pause for a moment and ask yourself, can I control this? Can I control how others feel or what happens in the future? Or am I only in control of my own actions and responses? This exercise is deceptively simple, but its effects are profound. By mentally distancing yourself from the uncontrollable, you immediately release the burden of anxiety and frustration. For example, if you're stuck in traffic, acknowledge that the situation is beyond your control. Instead of succumbing to stress, focus on how you respond, perhaps by using the time to reflect, to practice mindfulness, or to listen to an enlightening podcast. The Stoics emphasize that peace comes from focusing on our own behavior and thoughts, not the chaos of the external world. 2. Cultivate virtue through daily habits. As we've seen, virtue is at the heart of Stoicism. But how can we cultivate virtue in daily life? The answer lies in consistent small actions. If you want to be more courageous, act in small ways that challenge your fears. If you want to become more disciplined, set clear, achievable goals for your day and stick to them. Virtue is built on the foundation of habits, and habits are built through repeated actions. For example, start each day by practicing a small act of courage. This could be as simple as taking the stairs instead of the elevator, or as challenging as having a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. The more you practice courage, the stronger it becomes within you. Similarly, cultivate temperance. By saying no to small indulgences, whether it's a sugary snack or unnecessary distractions, and develop the strength to do what's necessary, even when it's not easy. By focusing on virtue every day, you create a momentum that slowly erodes the weaknesses within you. This isn't about grand gestures, it's about small, consistent efforts that align with your deeper values. 3. The power of journaling and self-reflection. One of the most powerful Stoic practices is journaling. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the most famous Stoic emperor, wrote his meditations as a form of personal reflection. He didn't write for an audience, but for himself, to remind himself of his principles, to examine his actions, and to stay on course. You can use journaling to create your own practice of self-reflection. Each day, write down your thoughts, actions, and challenges. Ask yourself how you responded to adversity. Were you able to maintain your composure, or did you fall into anger or despair? This is not a practice of self-criticism, but one of honest self-examination. By reflecting on your day, you can identify where you've acted in line with your values and where you've strayed. This daily habit of introspection helps to ground you in Stoic principles and forces you to confront your weaknesses head on. It provides a mirror to your soul, showing you where you need to improve and where you're succeeding. And over time, this simple practice will help you build resilience, clarity, and strength. 4. Training your mind to embrace discomfort. Another essential Stoic practice is to deliberately seek discomfort. This might sound counterintuitive, but the Stoics understood that growth comes through adversity. If you want to build resilience, you must put yourself in situations that challenge you. This could take many forms. For instance, try fasting for a day to cultivate temperance. Practice cold exposure, such as taking cold showers, to develop toughness and mental fortitude. Set difficult but achievable goals in your physical, mental, or emotional life, and push yourself to achieve them, even when it's uncomfortable. The key here is not to seek suffering for its own sake, but to understand that discomfort is often the crucible in which strength is forged. By embracing discomfort, you train your mind and body to endure hardship and to remain calm and composed when things don't go according to plan. 5. Live in accordance with nature. One of the central tenets of Stoicism is living in accordance with nature. This doesn't mean simply enjoying the outdoors, but rather living in harmony with the natural world and the flow of life itself. It means accepting the seasons of life, understanding that change is constant, and adapting to it without resistance. Living in accordance with nature also means honoring the natural rhythms of your own body and mind. Take time to rest when you're tired, to eat when you're hungry, and to reflect when you feel overwhelmed. It's about finding balance, not pushing against the natural order of things. In practical terms, living in accordance with nature means finding peace in the present moment. Don't get lost in what might happen tomorrow or in regrets about the past. Instead, engage with the present, the only moment you truly control. Live with intention and let go of the need to control everything outside of yourself. 6. The importance of community and mentorship. Finally, remember that the Stoics were not solitary figures. They valued the role of community and mentorship. While Stoicism is deeply personal, it is not a solitary pursuit. Engage with others who share your values and principles. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, inspire you, and hold you accountable. Find a mentor who can guide you on your journey, someone who has walked the path before and can offer wisdom. Similarly, be a mentor to others. The act of teaching and guiding another person solidifies your own understanding and reinforces your commitment to Stoic principles. This is a call to action for you. The journey to strength, self-mastery, and fulfillment is not easy, but it is possible. It requires constant effort, daily practice, and an unwavering commitment to the Stoic path. But in doing so, you will find a life of peace, purpose, and power, one that transcends the weakness and misery that afflict so many. As we conclude, remember that the key to transcending weakness and misery lies not in external circumstances, but in the inner fortress we build through our thoughts, habits, and actions. Stoicism teaches us that we are not at the mercy of the world. We are the architects of our own reality. The storms of life may rage around us, but we have the power to remain anchored, grounded in our virtues, and unshaken in our purpose. We've explored the root causes of misery, the unchecked desires, the irrational beliefs, the constant clinging to things outside of our control. And we've seen the path forward, embracing the dichotomy of control, cultivating virtue, embracing discomfort, and living in alignment with nature. These aren't abstract ideas. They are practical tools available to you right now to begin your transformation. But as with all ancient wisdom, the true power lies in application. The path to strength is not one of passive knowledge, but of active participation. Begin today. Reflect, act, and push yourself out of your comfort zone. Every small act of courage, every moment of self-discipline, every time you remind yourself to live in accordance with nature, these are the building blocks of a new, powerful version of yourself. So, I leave you with this thought: the only true weakness is the belief that you are powerless. When you accept that you are in control of your responses, your actions, and your growth, you open the door to a life of unimaginable strength, peace, and fulfillment. Take this wisdom with you, and let it be your guide as you step into a life of Stoic virtue. You are not weak, nor are you destined for misery. You are capable of greatness, and the time to begin is now. This concludes our journey into understanding why most people remain weak and miserable, and how Stoicism offers the tools to overcome it. Reflect on what you've learned today, and take a step toward creating the life you've always had the power to live. Thank you for watching.